Two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Fighting the deep state and Biden corruption. Well, these two happy women cannot do it alone. So we always love to have people who are in the fight with us. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And Maureen Steele joins us today. I'm so excited to dig in with Maureen. She's one of the co-founders of American Made Action Foundation. She's a national organizer, a spokesperson, a writer. What else can she do? Oh, she's a paralegal. How about that? She's done it all. And you can give her a follow at Maureen Steele _ and you can check out AmericanMadeFoundation.org. We're going to talk all about what they're up to and how they are helping President Trump fight the fight. Some of these stories are pretty incredible. But first, Maureen, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I always like being around happy ladies. I'm happy.
We are. We're happy warriors around here.
Exactly.
And, there was a story in California. I just want to put it into juxtaposition with something that you're doing coming up, that your committee, that your foundation, American Made Foundation, has been looking at. This family that literally is sitting in jail because they tried to deny vaccines. And there was like a manhunt for them for familial kidnapping. We're going to hear you tell the story in a second. But I want to put that in juxtaposition to a story in California. So that family sits behind bars. Those parents sit in jail today. Where in California, my home state, a man is going to be let out of prison in July for the DUI murder of two 19-year-old kids. He was an illegal immigrant, long rap sheet, deported a few times, let back into the country, just as many. And he gets on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, which a lot of people know, and gets to Seal Beach and going 100 miles an hour. He's drunk and he's high. And he kills two 19-year-old kids who were out on a date. They were longtime family friends. They grew up together. Their families knew each other, and they literally burned to death because their car exploded because of the impact of the collision. And the families are now speaking out because not only is the story that in California, that guy only got 10 years in jail, but he's being let out after 3.5 years. That's a problem. But he's also here illegally. And the question will be if California actually cooperates with ICE. But it's interesting to note that those people who have committed murder are getting out of jail while families are still being punished in our state. Tell us about this story, about this family that is paying the price for choosing not to vaccinate their kids.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. It was brought to my attention originally by Joan Quinn Eastman. She's kind of a legend in the Boston area. And she called me up and said, we have an unbelievable story. And so I was all ears. And basically, there was this family, the Rivera family, mother and father, homeschool their children. They're married for 15 years. They have 5 children. Their youngest 9-month-old little boy, they brought him to a pediatrician well-child visit. And this was a Gohafar is his name. He's a Tehran trained doctor. And the doctor threatened them at the visit that if they don't get a vaccine, the vaccines for their child, he was going to report them to CPS. And they refused and they got scared. So they went home and CPS, leaves notices improperly, starts calling them, all of that. So they're terrified at this point. They don't know what's going on. They've refused shots before to have nothing like this happen. And so they ended up moving and packing up and moving their family. It put them in the RV and moved them to Texas, where they thought they would be able to, keep their family safe. Not so much, not here in the United States anymore. CPS put out an Amber Alert, notified the authorities in Texas, and they did a full manhunt for this family, said there was familial kidnapping, a mother and father and their 5 children. I mean, as parents, how do you kidnap your own family and your own children because you refused a vaccine? And I'd like to make it clear, this family has never been under investigation before. There's never been any complaints about this family, how they care for their children or any of that. It's purely, it was just CPS complete overreach. overreach. And unfortunately, the AG's office of Texas went along with this, and they surrounded their house, guns drawn, about 15 to 20 police officers, and they took all these kids at gunpoint away from this family. And the parents were jailed for 30 days in Texas before they were extradited to Massachusetts. Father is still behind bars with a $25,000 cash bail set. This is a nonviolent man. There's videos out there online on X where you can hear him so eloquently speaking in the courtroom when he was arraigned on charges of familial kidnapping, when it's absolute bogus. And in this day and age, there's a huge pushback on our Constitution and the violations of it. The Constitution says you cannot strip anyone of their property without a trial by jury, and they're doing it every single day. Your children are your DNA, they are your property. And for people to just be taking kids from people willy-nilly, and this is happening every single day in every single state. I literally have hundreds of cases in a folder, and they're present day cases. These aren't like, oh, this happened 10 years ago. This is just like in the last week of people calling me from all over the country with kids being illegally kidnapped. It's state sanctioned child kidnapping is what it is.
Guys, there's something that we all can't avoid, and that is aging. And, as we age, you know what happens. We're all dealing with more aches and pains, thinning hair, wrinkling skin. Even our nails start to get more brittle. So I want to tell you about this product that Katie and I have been using. It is called Revive from Bright Core Nutrition. It's easy to mix. That's really the best part. No chunky, powdery things that float around in your drink. No, easy to mix. Multi-collagen powder helps strengthen your bones and joints. And the best thing about Revive is that it works from the inside out. It's also going to help you rejuvenate your skin, help you grow back thicker, healthier, shinier hair, and strengthen your brittle nails. Revive is special because it contains 5 types of collagen, hyaluronic acid, biotin, vitamin C, and they all work synergistically to make you look and feel younger than ever. It's all natural, non-GMO, and we love it, 100% made in the USA. Today, exclusive for Happy Women listeners and viewers, you can get 25% off with the code HAPPYWOMEN by going to mybrightcore.com/happywomen, or you can call Brightcore. In fact, they prefer it for up to 50% off, free shipping, and a special free gift. Give them a call right now, 888-927-5980, and their educated staff will make sure that Revive is right for you. 888-927-5980.
That's got to be so tough to become sort of famous as the person who covers that kind of story. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I could handle hearing all those stories because it's so upsetting. So I'm just curious, obviously you have the power of the pen, you can report on it, and that really, really helps. But what else do you do? I mean, what other recourse is there? Do you reach out, for example, I know there are some great organizations. I'm thinking, for example, Southeast Legal Foundation, or what am I thinking of? ADL Alliance? No, Alliance Defending Freedom.
Yes. Freedom.
ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. I know these are organizations that will take on pro bono cases where people's freedoms, their constitutional rights are being infringed. But I'm just curious, what's your recourse? What do you do?
So, well, the people do have recourse, and that's what we're bringing. So I know you introduced us as American Made Foundation, and we have American Made Foundation. That's the educational piece. So that is a 501c3. We have a 501c4, and that is American Made Action. And what we're bringing there, and we'll be announcing tomorrow, we're going to be in Boston it's called the People's Press Conference, and we're going to be calling out the governor there, and pointing out how egregious this is, the stripping of this family's rights, and the agency overreach. So we're doing that, and we're bringing a lot of people together, but we're trying to cut the head off the snake. The Solicitor General on February 20th, 2025, had released a statement, a notice, basically saying that these agencies and these lower courts, they don't have any power. Of course, they were overturned in July of 2024. The Supreme Court said, with the overturning of the Chevron deference, these judges can no longer rubber stamp just because an agency says something. And CPS, Child Protective Services, is an agency. And every state has their own sub-agency of that. They go under different names, family family services or whatever. So we're going to be giving some major pushback. We've put together the Department of Government Accountability. That is comprised of a lot of strategic partners, some of the groups you just named. And we also have the United Law Coalition. This is historical. We have never had a coalition like this in American history. We have over 1,000 lawyers on this, in this coalition that are poised with their pen to start pushing back constitutionally, and pointing back against these judges, these courts, that they are unconstitutional. Therefore, they're null and void, and we don't have to listen to you. In 2017, President Trump announced that, he's giving the government back to the American people, where the power has always lied. And we've just been dumbed down for so many generations. We don't even know that we hold all the power. So the foundation side is educating people, and the action side is taking action. So we'll be announcing the Department of Government Accountability and the United Law Coalition. Warner Mendenhall is part of that. We have incredible legal minds. We've had judges come out of retirement, constitutional judges, to help plan the strategy here. Their days of running roughshod are about to be over. And when we announce this on the steps of the DOJ on May 6th, I think it's going to send shockwaves through DC. They've never seen the people rise like this. They've never seen the people organized like this. And, we are also fully funded. That's always been something on the other side. They have Soros. They have all these, dark players. And for the first time, we have incredible backing and pushback against, tyranny. And that's what we're living in, ladies. It's tyrannical.
I want to go back to Boston in a second, but you're here at the DOJ, and I think this is so compelling. So May 6th, you're going to be announcing officially this coalition. We're breaking some news here, and I just have to, it's kind of a two-part question. Number one, are you happy with the speed of Trump's DOJ right now, going after and kind of digging out? We talked, Katie and I were talking off podcast about the new effort by Pam Bondi to go after anti-Christian bias, which is huge. There's going to be a new task force. Are they doing enough, given that they're only 100 days in now? And part two, who are your first targets with this announcement that you'll be making on the steps of the DOJ?
Sure. Great questions. So no, I am not a happy woman about that, about what's going on with the DOJ and Pam Bondi. And when she came out, was it last week or the week before, talking about, going after vandals? Maybe the police officers can't handle that. We need the U.S. Attorney General to deal with vandals now for Tesla cars. I was just kind of blown away when we have treason and sedition going on right under her nose, and there's no charges filed. I think there was enough evidence in the first 4 years Trump was in office that they could have mounted an unbelievable case and launched it, day one. So I'm upset about it. I don't like it. And I think that's where it really falls on we the people. We have the power to do it. We don't need a Pam Bondi to do it. We can bring these cases. We can level these charges. We also have, citizen grand juries being set up in every state of the nation. So, it's the power is in the people's hands. And, President Trump certainly can't do it alone. Pam Bondi can't seem to do much. So, now it's up to us. So that's where our head is at. It's up to we the people. Never put your faith in the institution, ladies.
Okay, I want to keep going with this because I think this is a really important topic, and I feel like I'm seeing more and more online about people's unhappiness with Pam Bondi, even with Kash Patel, who I think is such a hero. And there's a part of me that wants to defend them because, look, these things take time. You can't just, especially building a case against somebody is really, really challenging. Is there a possibility that we should be giving them the benefit of the doubt and trusting that a lot of things are actually in process, but that process does take a little bit of time? Or do you really think that they're blowing it? They are simply not acting fast enough and decisively enough?
I think they're not acting fast enough or decisively enough. And I also think they're not being transparent enough. If there's glitches, if there's, we're trying to build a case and we're waiting for certain things. And, these cases are in the works. They don't tell the American people anything. So I think that's what's upsetting to most people is that and it's such flagrant constitutional violations. You have Boasberg, for instance. Let's just make him the target right now. There is nothing in a federal judge's job description that says he can act in the manner in which he is. Their scope is very narrow. They can interpret the law based on the Constitution. They can apply the law based on the Constitution. There's nothing in there that says he can undermine a sitting president, undermine the executive branch, and put out these national orders. You can't turn a plane around that's carrying criminals out of our country. So they're acting so out of their scope that I believe they should just be ignored. I don't know why everyone's stopping everything. Oh, well, he said. It doesn't matter what he said. It's not within his job description. It's like, me calling up Mass General Hospital and telling them, we're all going to be using pink gloves from now on instead of the clear, sterile ones we're using. I don't have the authority to do that. It's that absurd. And so what's more absurd is that Washington stops everything and is listening to this nonsense, and Pam Bondi is just sitting there letting this happen. So I think there should have been immediate pushback on that, and he should have been, and his job description should have been, maybe sticky noted to his forehead. These judges are rogue and they're way, way out of line. And it's sad to see even our, Supreme Court justices aren't applying the Constitution. And I mean, I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not a Supreme Court justice, but you don't need it. The Constitution is written so simplistically. It's very, very clear. They don't have the power to be undermining the president either. And where were these rogue judges when everyone was pouring in across our borders? They just sat back and allowed it. Where were the rogue judges when all this DEI stuff was coming in? Clear constitutional violations. And, everyone just sat there. And now all of a sudden, because Trump's back in office, they're just going to they're trying to hamstring him. They're trying to take him out at the knees. And I just feel badly that it seems like his entire cabinet is allowing it as well. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope they spring into action and we see some incredible lawsuits coming. But I will tell you is if that does happen, we will be able to provide a tremendous force behind Pam Bondi. And with these cases, I mean, we have over 1,000 attorneys in our arsenal right now that are ready to go. So, we also are writing boilerplate, boilerplate suits and documents that kind of apply because it's so overarching. We're not going after a specific case like the Rivera case. We're going after the overarching civil rights violation, constitutional violations. And so, those sort of apply everywhere. You can just kind of boilerplate them and start rolling these things out state by state.
I like the idea of help from the outside because I do think it's a lot. It's a lot. You have to get right if you're the Attorney General of the United States or the FBI director. You have to button a lot up, and that does take a little bit of time. But I agree that we can do our part on the outside. So how do you come up with the places where you are putting those targets? Is it something that someone can come to you with? Is this something where the interests of the founders or the participants in this will be saying, hey, this is an egregious violation? How are we picking those targets?
So we originally were going to go after North Carolina just because of what was going on there with the flood. And I don't know if you girls are aware of this, but CPS went in there and did a grab for those kids, like you read about. Some of those poor families that they don't even know where their children are. Their children were taken because they were living in tents. There was such a horrible response by FEMA, which we found was a bogus response. When Trump got into office the next day, there was trucks there and all of that. Prior to that, it was just crickets. We had boots on the ground there. There was nothing. So parents, people lost their homes and they're living in tents. CPS comes in. No one can get in there to deliver food and water, but CPS could get in there to tell you, you're not providing for your kids properly. You guys are living in a tent and cooking in a fire here. So you're not able to care for your kids. We're taking them. And they grabbed all these kids. And to this day, there's parents that don't even know where their children are. Of course, all of their documents were destroyed, birth certificates, mortgages, all of it. I mean, what do you do? And so there's a land grab going on there, and there's a kid grab, and CPS is behind it all. So ultimately, they get funded by HHS. That's where the federal funds come from for CPS, and it trickles down into the states. And it was the Adoption and Safe Family Act that Hillary Clinton wrote, that her husband Bill put into law, that really put numbers and targets on children's heads. And that's when things went really sideways. So they would offer incentives, just like with the vaccines. Doctors were getting those letters. If you're, 50% of your, I want to say clients, your patients are vaccinated, you get an extra $300,000 bonus. I mean, I have those papers. It's just incredible to see. So they're doing the same thing. So if you take kids from a home, they get a certain amount of money. If you adopt those kids out, they try to rush the adoption. They have to be adopted within 12
They
to 15
incentivize CPS? That's what you're saying? They're incentivizing this?
Yes, they're incentivizing it. It's a big money-making machine. It's about an $80 billion a year industry. The child, kidnapping industry, the state sanctions child kidnapping industry. General Flynn's sister, Mary Flynn, and all the Flynns are involved with America's Future. It's an incredible organization, but they've been bringing so much of this to light, not just the children that are being sex trafficked, turned into sex slaves, but the foster program here in our country. 80% of those children are sexually molested or physically abused in their foster homes. And I'm not saying all foster parents are bad. I'm not. There's some very good people. But 80% of kids, and like the Rivera family, these kids are yanked out of a good home and put in foster homes where they're abused. So you go from not being abused to actually being abused. And so parents spend millions of dollars trying to get their kids back. There's one case in Arizona, 10 years it took these parents to get their children back. They never hurt their child. 14-year-old girl, one of the girls in the family, there's 4 kids, and she couldn't go to a party. I mean, I've got kids. I've raised teenagers. I mean, they make these calls. My mom's mean. She won't let me go to a party. Again, family, no prior anything. She calls CPS. And of course, schools encourage that now, to disrespect your parents and you don't have to listen to them. She calls CPS. All 4 kids got taken within 24 hours. 10 years later, parents still don't have their kids. Yeah,
That is
this is what's going on, and people don't understand it. There's a silent war in this country, and it's a war on the American family, and it's a war on our children.
the other element of this war is the degree to which U.S. policies under Biden really cultivated and encouraged trafficking of children across the border. And again, we don't talk about this enough, partly because it's hard to see. I mean, I had the privilege of seeing it because I worked for Customs and Border Protection while I was serving in the first Trump administration. I got to go into these holding facilities, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids that had come up through the border by themselves, or being trafficked or sent with coyotes, or being used to get adults across. And then once the adults are across, the kids are left behind. So I'm just curious, in all the work that you're doing, I know you're really focused on the American family and the American kids, but are you seeing any of this intersect with this problem that there are probably several 100,000 kids here who were trafficked across the border, and we don't know where they are?
Hey guys, it's Jennifer Horn and Katie Gorka from the Happy Women podcast, and we are both so excited to talk to you about my PhD, weightloss.com. The PhD weight loss program has worked for Katie. She is in maintenance. I am still going through my journey, but Katie, I just told you this last weekend, I threw out a stack of clothes that no longer fit. It's time for a new wardrobe. That's right. I'm excited about that. It's a good problem to have, I guess.
I was so excited because I actually had to get rid of almost my entire winter wardrobe because I went from a size 12 to a size 8. And it's funny because I kept a few of my favorite pieces and I put them on and they're like so baggy. I don't feel good in them. But yeah, it was absolutely an amazing program. And what I'm excited about, I'm now 2 years post weight loss, and I've been able to maintain my weight this whole time. So it's been great.
Incredible victories. Time to feel them for yourself. Call PhD Weight Loss right now, 864-644-1900, 864-644-1900, or myphdweightloss.com. Use code Jen, myphdweightloss.com, code Jen.
Yes, that's very true. And it's about 350,000 kids we've lost track of. But just so you know, in the foster care program, we've lost over 400,000 children in America, if you can stomach that figure. And what they do, it's such a brilliantly laid out evil plan. Just like with the Rivera family, you target lower income families because they don't have money to get a good lawyer. And they're working so hard just to pay their rent that, they just don't have the time. There's very few, even like the 10-year family that I mentioned earlier that lost their kids for 10 years. They spent over $1 million. They actually had money and they still couldn't get their kids back. This machine is just, they want your kids and they don't want to admit they're wrong, because then that, opens them up for lawsuits. So, there's a, when you don't have parents that are coherent or they're so depressed and you've made them so hopeless that they don't even know where their kids are. They just have to survive too. And so no one keeps looking for these kids. And now they have them, so many people that are involved in the child sex slave, saving them and rescuing these kids and seeking them out. They believe, I'm going to talk to a lot of these guys, they're incredible, that most of these kids are dead. They've been organ harvested, adrenochrome. And I know so many people think that's baloney, but it's just not. I've seen some of these videos that were so horrific. I thought it couldn't be real. It was just so shocking to see. And I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. It was really that disturbing. People getting beheaded with machetes. And very graphic, and they videotape it and they love sending them so the government knows what's going on, because these guys are ex-military and they're getting it sent to them. So they're proud of it. These MS-13 gang members, they're proud of what they're doing and they love showing it off. So, that our government knows it and nothing's being done. And every time I hear, oh, we're going to mount a task force, it's like, do you know all the people that have been on the border for the last 10 years, Michael Yon, one of the most world-renowned war reporters of all time, he's down there, he's reporting on this daily and has for years. And all the evidence is there. They have the names, they have the photographs, they have everything. And, we got to mount a task force for it. We already have all the evidence. Why doesn't someone just go collect that? Go watch the TV. It's right there on podcasts, right before your eyes. We need a task force now. It's to me, this is just stalling. It seems like the left and right are two wings of the same dirty bird. That they're all on the take with these NGOs and the money being filtered down. You can't make 180 grand a year in Congress or the Senate, in DC, and leave 4 or 5 years later or 8 years later and you got $20 million in the bank. They're on the take. We're the only country in the world, girls, that has, we legalize bribery. We call it lobbying. It's legalized bribery and it's disgusting and it needs to stop. So our government has become so corrupt. It's rotting from the inside. And I do believe, to get back to what we talked about earlier, I think that's one of the issues Bondi's having, and maybe Bongino and Cash. I think the swamp is so bad and it's so deep and it's so much vaster than we can even begin to comprehend, that they're being hamstrung. Probably people that they're trying to hire that would do a good job. Me, for instance, I haven't been called yet, but I would love to work with Bondi. I would love to help. But do you get a call and get threatened by the deep state? What happens to these people? Because they all seem to go in gung ho, and then they get in there and they're like deers in the headlights, and it's like, what is happening to you all once you get there? What's going on in that snake pit, And I just wish someone would be brave enough to get on a microphone and blow the whistle on it. Here's what's happening once you get here. Here's how you get threatened. Here's how you get bribed. And if you don't play ball, here's what, I would just love someone to be brave enough to just expose it.
Honestly, though, because we saw so much of this, I think, and much more of it, honestly, in the first administration. And I will say, I really want to give credit to some of the many leaders in this administration who are taking really bold steps and all the things that Elon is doing. So I definitely think this administration is doing better, but I still think there is a lot of what you're describing. And honestly, a lot of it, I don't know if there's actual bribery or threats or whatever, or blackmail. I think all those things are a possibility. But even if those things aren't going on, I'll tell you what some of it is. It's just that really banal human impulse to be liked. I think people get into these organizations, they get put in the top of a huge, powerful organization, and they get captured. They want to be liked by the staff. They want to be considered successful. They are not going to come in and overturn the boat. I mean, I can tell you, my guess is Marco Rubio is hated inside that building because he is closing offices. He is consolidating departments. He is totally disrupting what they are doing. And I can guarantee you right now, there are many different efforts plotting and working against him and working to get him out and to get the people that are helping him out. And it is just a constant battle. But I will say, I think the bottom line is you got to have people who are just really bold to begin with and really willing to shake things up, which is why I kind of think Elon Musk is sort of the perfect person.
Yeah,
I know. I'm so curious to know what you think of Elon, Maureen. I'm like, I saw you smile actually when Katie mentioned Elon Musk. You smiled a little bit.
I did. I think what he's exposing is, it's really waking up so many of the people we couldn't get to before. I mean, when you see that malfeasance and how they've been wasting billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of our tax dollars through these NGOs and these secret backroom meetings, it's so despicable. I think he's done us such a favor. He's made our job so much easier because people are seeing it. There's very few people. There's a group that are coming out. They're mad at the messenger, but and then when they're saying Elon shouldn't have access to, the back end or social security numbers or whatever, he already had top security clearance. He was making our rockets for, our rocket launches for the United States government. He had the highest clearance already. So, and Biden granted him that. And people don't understand that. So, he didn't get this security clearance from President Trump. He already had it. So, no, I think what he's exposing is fantastic. What I don't understand is why no one is talking about Maximus, and that is the true devil behind all of this, and no one's mentioning it. And I find that so odd. And so I've been really working on trying to uncover Maximus, which is, do you girls know what that is?
About Maximus?
No.
Okay, this is the octopus. So in the name of government efficiency, the government decided to literally every single agency. There isn't one you can name, not the DOJ, not the Department of Education, nobody, the DMV, everybody. They all use Maximus. They hold all the databases. So, and they manage all the payments. So this was for government efficiency. So now you see how inefficient it is because what Doge is uncovering. So all the payments and all the databases, the comings and goings, all runs through Maximus. And you can look it up. We just signed like a $439,000 5-year contract just for one agency alone, $439 million a year for them to manage our stuff efficiently. Clearly, they're not managing it efficiently. We're sending out Medicaid and Medicare payments to the tune of billions overseas. So they're not doing a very good job at it. I think they're all part of it. I think our government did this on purpose because it's a corporation. It's traded on the NASDAQ. And it's not efficient at all. But if Elon is looking at the books and the waste, he's looking at Maximus, because they hold everything. They hold all the databases and they hold all the books. So if you're applying for food stamps, say, and you go into your county office and you apply, you think you're dealing with a state worker. You are not. You are dealing with Maximus. That is Maximus software. Everything they're inputting when they're typing away and you're giving your information, it's all going to Maximus. Maximus also contracts with our government for legislation ideas. And so this is just a big game. So, even when Elon exposes stuff, this is what gets my goat and grinds my gears, is they don't expose all of it. Why is it everyone walks up to this certain line and it's like right here and no further? We can't cross this line. So, I don't mind crossing the line, and I think I think that Maximus is the story. Maximus is a public corporation, and they have access to absolutely everything. So again, when the American people, the lefties, were saying, oh, Elon has access, every person sitting in Maximus has access to every single database. They know if you have a parking ticket. They know if you have an unpaid, loan. Everything is running through Maximus. But why don't we know about that? Why hasn't that ever been mentioned? And you girls are in the know.
You give me a wormhole to fall into.
I know.
Yeah. So it's pretty deep and it's pretty bad. So yeah. So if he's going through books, he's using Maximus, but no one ever mentions their name.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
Maureen, you are fun to talk to, and we appreciate the work that you're doing. American Made Action or the American Made Foundation, both groups that you can support, and you can give her a follow right now. They're going to be in Boston. They're going to be at the DOJ next week. Maureen Steele, STEELE _, and you can follow her on social media. Maureen, thanks so much, and good luck with all of your work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to meet both of you today.
Appreciate you. And of course, we want you to get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, available wherever you get your books. You can check her out online as well, katiegorka.org. You can follow her. Just search for Catherine Gorka on Facebook or Gorka Katie on X. And you can follow me on social media too, Jennifer Horn Radio on Instagram and Facebook, and at Jennifer Horn on X and on Truth. And we so appreciate those 5-star reviews. Please keep them coming, and make sure you tell your friends to subscribe to Happy Women. It really does help us, and we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.